Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at an older figure from Safari LTD, and it is their Corythosaurus. This species of hadrosaur for some reason always gets looked over, and I do not understand why. It's one of the most popular species as far as when I was a child. This species of hadrosaur, they were all over the books that I looked at constantly, just all over the place. And it was probably about as popular as Parasaurolophus, right behind Parasaurolophus, I would say. But for some reason, it's just really underrepresented when it comes to figures, and I just absolutely have no idea why. It's extremely baffling to me. But lucky for us, Safari LTD at one time did make one, and that is this one right here. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get a closer look at this. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see that the head sculpt overall is really quite nice. Definitely a real beautiful Corythosaurus head sculpt right here. You can see the beautiful crest up here as well. Really nicely sculpted, and it's painted with like a greenish coloration, but then you have some blue and some black stripes kind of littering the crest. And although up close it definitely looks more like paint than actual skin color, from a little bit of a distance away, you can see that it does definitely look quite nice and has quite the flashy appearance to it. I will definitely say that. When you come up here to the snout, you can see the beak sculpted out there, really nicely done. It's painted with a grayish coloration. And one thing that I don't really like about it, and it's kind of weird, is they have these like little white spots on both sides of the beak area of the Corythosaurus. I'm really unsure why that's there, and I feel like it takes away from the figure a little bit, but it's nothing terrible. It's just kind of awkward looking. The detailing around the eye also looks really quite nice. You've got a beautiful yellow eye with a black pupil, and it is really beautifully placed. The eyes on the figure are not sloppy at all. They look really good, and you can see that for the most part the face is like a light yellowish green, and then there are some darker green spots, and then kind of a darker green stripe that runs down from the eye and then borders around the eye. And for the most part, I think the paint application looks decent. It's probably not what I would have had for my first choice of a Corythosaurus, but it is what it is, and I think it's still okay. If we look at the underside of the animal as we move down the throat, you can see that it is painted with a nice light blue, which again is a little different than what I would have expected, but that's not to say that this is a bad figure as far as the paint goes. It's just not that appealing. You've got some nice skin texture as we lead down the neck, some pretty nice scaling coming up into the body. The body then starts to become very large, very bulky, almost has like a hunch here on the back. And you can see that the skin texture continues to look just like it looked up there on the neck as far as the scaling goes. There isn't too much, honestly, as far as detail, like bone structure shining through. You can sort of see the shoulder blade there, but it's not really all that noticeable. It's not that elaborated, but the animal is also quite thick, and you can definitely see that it's a fairly well-fed Corythosaurus. You've got some nice skin stretching off of the body down here when it comes to this front limb pulling forward, stretching that skin quite beautifully. As you move down the front leg here, you can definitely see the real nice skin texture. That beautiful scaling continues as we move down into the foot. The foot also looks quite nicely done. If we come up here, back up into the body, you can now see that that skin detail continues, but you can also see that the dark green now turns into like a striping or some sort of a strange design with some spots here and there. And you also have some blue spots that show up here and there on the animal as well. Coming back here into the leg, you've got the really nice hip bone there, beautifully defined musculature, as well as a nice kneecap there. As we move down the leg, you can see some musculature there in the calf, but not too much. As we look down into the foot sculpt actually looks really quite nice. Beautiful detailing within the foot as well, and you've got really nicely painted nails that also include a bit of a gloss coat to them, so they shine pretty realistically. And then moving back up into the body, again, that really nice scaling leads out the rest of the tail, the hadrosaur-like tail. Beautiful hadrosaur-like tail, I will say that. Very nice, very straight sculpt to it. There's no real movement being shown or anything within the tail. I think it looks really good. Again, you have that light blue on the underside, and then you have like that green kind of design that leaks down from the upper side of the animal, stripes down a little bit, and then you also have some of those darker blue spots up here on the figure. On this side, you've got the really nice sculpt again of the head. It looks beautiful for sure. I really like the head sculpt of this Corythosaurus. As we move down into the neck, again, you've got lots of creasing in the skin, honestly, on this side, so you've got some pretty nice skin detail showing. And then you've got the really nicely sculpted out shoulder blade, actually, on this side. It's a little more noticeable for some reason than this side. This side it's almost non-existent, but this side it is quite noticeable. You will see it there, and that's different than the previous side. I'm not sure why it's like that, but I think it just looks a little better on this side than it did on the previous side. And then you've got the front limb here sculpted out in a backwards position. As we can see, the Corythosaurus appears to be running along, or maybe even just strolling, but it's definitely going somewhere, that's for sure. The detailing of this front limb also looks quite nice. Nicely painted nails, again with that grayish coloration similar to what we have here on the back of the rear feet. And then if we come back up into the body, you can again see some of the girth in the stomach there, along with some skin folding and everything going on there. Lots of creases right here when it comes to the movement of that front limb there, that front leg. Again, the paint application looks nice with this green striping and then the blue spots and stuff. Really nice detailing right here in the hip bone of the dinosaur. Nicely defined musculature as we move down the rear leg. Once again, you've got the kneecap there. Beautiful curve to the foot here as it's lifting up, taking a step. And then once again, the really nicely painted nails. They don't appear to be too sloppy or anything, and they do again have that nice gloss coat that helps them to shine quite realistically. So I really do like that area. Nice creasing again in the skin right here behind the thigh. And then we move out the length of that beautiful hadrosaur tail. If we look at the underside also sports some really nice detailing for sure, and even includes a cloaca right there. So really nice detailing for its time. It is a very impressive figure. Maybe not quite what we would see from Safari LTD nowadays, but it's still a beautiful looking Corythosaurus regardless. As far as a size goes, from the snout to the tail, you're looking at about just under 8 1/4 inches, or about 21 centimeters. And for a height, the highest point is probably going to be the crest at about 3 1/4 inches, or around 8.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, Robert Muldoon, and the Attack Pack Corythosaurus, helping to give you an idea of the size of the Corythosaurus. It's nothing huge, nothing overly large, definitely nothing as far as size comparison goes to the newer Safari LTD Edmontosaurus as far as hadrosaurs go, but it definitely does sport some really nice size, and you can see it's probably a little larger than an Attack Pack figure from Mattel currently. But honestly, I really do like the size. It's nothing that's too large, it's not too small, pretty much just right. So this Safari LTD Corythosaurus is a really nice looking figure. I am a big fan of the sculpt, and I have been for a long time, just based off of the fact that it's a Corythosaurus alone. But honestly, Safari LTD never really does a bad job on their figures. I know if we'll go back to like the beginnings of Safari LTD, you'll find some fairly bad looking sculpts back then, but at the time they were kind of groundbreaking. And on top of that, for the most part, that's how we perceived dinosaurs to look back then. So for the time that this Corythosaurus was made, it was probably a really beautiful, very accurate and highly detailed figure. Nowadays, it doesn't quite match up to what we see figure-wise as far as detailing and everything goes, but even though it's not as highly detailed as we find nowadays, I still think it's really quite nice, honestly. And I actually have 2 of these, and one of which I am going to repaint just to see how nice the sculpt is underneath this paint, because I think one of the biggest downsides for this figure, as far as I'm concerned, is the colors. And it's not even that nice green that comes down, like that darker green. I do like that. I'm not a fan really of the blue spots on the figure. I think that's just weird and random and really doesn't serve much of a purpose. But I also am not a huge fan of that light green color that is the primary body color. I feel like that if this would have been like a light brown or something, this maybe would have looked a lot better. I just feel like the colors are maybe a little too bright for me, and just the shade of that green is just off as far as what I would like to see on a hadrosaur. But other than that, the design that they've gone with as far as like the paint scheme with the green leaking down and spotting and stuff everywhere, I really do like that, and I think it looks extremely cool on a hadrosaur. The crest, as far as the way they've gone about painting that, also looks quite nice. And one thing that is good about the figure that should definitely be commended is the fact that none of the paint is sloppy anywhere. All of the paint looks honestly perfect as far as I'm concerned. Some areas like the crest don't look like it's body color. It does look like paint, but it's not really applied sloppily. It looks good for what it is, and for the most part it does look really nice as far as the paint work. The only place that doesn't look like body color, honestly, I would say would be the crest. And the only area that I think is really awkward besides the blue spots is that little white spot on the side of the snout. I just think it's just super strange. I don't understand why that's there. But other than that, honestly, it's a really nice figure. And on top of that, it's a Corythosaurus. We don't get Corythosaurus very often, if ever, so we've got to take what we can get, and honestly, it's a pretty darn good version of a Corythosaurus. So, if you want to pick this up, I will do my best to find a link on eBay for you, because this is long discontinued. Many years it's been discontinued, so it may be a little harder to find, but if you can find it, swoop it up, because it is definitely quite the looker as far as a Corythosaurus figure goes. So, again, I'll try to find a link for you guys, so check the description. If I can't find one, happy hunting. Hopefully you can acquire one of these yourself, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.